The hardest thing is, how do you tell the difference between the legit place that's telling you the truth, that's doing good work, and then the illegal place down the street that kind of looks the same? It's hard to tell, right?
Mhm.
This is Medspa Mayhem, the podcast all about the chaotic world of medical aesthetics. From Botox to lasers to IV bars, learn how to tell real versus fake, legal versus illegal, and safe versus potentially deadly. Hear the crazy stories inside the med spa world and find out what questions to ask and how to spot the people cutting corners. I'm your host, Dr. Kate D. Together, we explore the wild west of medicine that is the aesthetics industry. Hi, this is Dr. Kate D, and I'm here today with Nicole Gregory. And she has been on the podcast in the past. Back, if you want to listen to that, it was season 2, episode 23, Innovation in Aesthetics. And Nicole is an MBA and business owner of med spas in Michigan, and also the founder of Michigan Spa, or MI Spa. You can
Mhm.
talk about it that, which is a organization of med spas in Michigan. Nicole, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about what's going on. Just a little refresher of the industry.
Yeah, so we are going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the MedSpa board. I've talked about the board before on the podcast, and we just are beta testing our brand new website right now. We're still looking at branding and stuff like that. But can you talk a little bit about how you got roped into this with me back when we did the first podcast recording?
Yeah, no, I mean it's always great to be with you. So thank you again. I think when you approached the idea to me, I was like, wow, that's great. And that there is something that we need to have kind of as the glue of the industry that's not only going to help from a credentialing or certification standpoint for a consumer to look at, but it also helps elevate the organization. So when you brought up the idea of the MedSpa board and having this certification, I thought that's amazing. Like, how do I become a part of that? So, thank you for asking me. And, the industry needs something like this for, again, for the consumer and then also for the businesses.
Yeah, we've been talking for the last year and a half on this podcast about the wonderful and the awful parts of the industry we're in. And
Mm.
unfortunately, for all the really great services and all the really great people and all the really great med spas, and there are many, there are probably an equal number, if not more, services and people and med spas that are doing stuff that is just either illegal, dangerous, disfiguring, or all of those things. And it's so difficult to sort through that. So, I wrote the book and I started this podcast in order to go directly to consumers and say, hey, these are the things you got to know so that you don't end up, dropping dead in an IV clinic, because that's happened, right?
Right.
And I mean, it's scary as all get out. And so my idea was always on the side of support the people doing the right thing. So, you know, those of us who are doing everything legally and practicing medicine at the highest level we know how, right? We care so much and we're very cautious, and we're really honest about the kinds of services we do and what the expectations are. We don't tend to oversell things, but it's super appealing to go to these places that say, oh, we can, make you look like this model, or we can give you Angelina Jolie's jawline, or, all these
Right.
promises, right? And it's very appealing, and people go to these places. And I think the hardest thing is, how do you tell the difference between the legit place that's telling you the truth, that's doing good work, and then the illegal place down the street that kind of looks the same? It's hard to tell, right?
Mhm.
So we've been working together for months now, trying to figure out the best way to go about, how do you validate, how do you confirm that people are doing it legitimately and legally, and then putting together a program where people can, get certified and tell the world, "Hey, I'm certified. I'm legit. Here, look at this." And it's been kind of complicated because it's not just the application process. It's like how are we going to assess that, and can we really prove that someone's doing something the way they say they are? I mean, it's pretty intricate. We don't have an army of inspectors to go into these places around the country. So we've been hashing all of that out, and I think we have a pretty good plan at this point, right?
I think you've done a great job, and the Medspa board, the people involved in that you've pulled together at this point are really thoughtful about how can we have an organization that again credentials the providers, the businesses, but also really empowers the consumer. And it's not easy, just like you said. It's not a hey, I think this is the one idea, let's move forward. There's a lot of, oh, what if this happens, and how do we reassure the consumer here. And so there's a lot of thought process that goes into it. And I appreciate that and the work that the whole board has done to make sure it's moving in the right direction. Because just put out there too fast, obviously there'd be a misstep. And that's kind of been the problem with the whole industry, right? Is that it's been moving too fast. So I think the way that the MedSpa board is pulling this together really thoughtfully, something that's going to be really impactful for the industry, is the right way to do it.
Yeah, well, we've been kind of simultaneously working on several aspects of this. The biggest one has been the website application for the med spas to do, and
Mhm.
we've got that down now. And I would really like going forward, once we are really super ready to launch, we're sort of in beta, so we're pretty close, but to be able to focus on education on both sides. So for consumers and also for the providers and the owners of the med
Mhm.
spas so that we can help people do things in a legit way. Like if they're
Right.
close, maybe they're very close, but there's something missing. It's like, oh gosh, uh, we would love to help you get certified. This is the one part of your practice that's like not hitting the mark. You really need to like. There are a lot of places that aren't
Yeah.
doing a good faith exam, for instance. But then also on the consumer side, best practices or things to look for, or even having a series of articles on the different treatments and what treatments are safe and things for different skin type. I don't know. So I feel like that's maybe down the line once we're up and
Mhm.
running. And I think the most important thing reaching out is for if people are listening who either are providers in a med spa or own a med spa, like get certified. If you're legit, you want to get certified so you can advertise to the world. We're going to be working massively on campaigns for SEO for our website and the directory and direct to consumer marketing. But then also for consumers, if there are people out there listening who are like, hey, you're listening because you love this med spa stuff, all the aesthetic stuff is really interesting. Ask your provider where you live, "Hey, are you certified? Have you heard about this new certification thing?" And
Mhm.
then find out if they can get certified. And if you encourage them to do it and we find out, whoa, they're not. or
Right.
maybe they're totally legit, but it'd be really interesting to know, right? Like, are all your people out there, are they legit? Because chances are half the people listening to this, probably the place you go isn't.
Right.
um,
Well, that's so interesting you say that, because last year there were a few legislative bills that were trying to get ran through the Michigan legislation here. And, one of as we were having appointments with different senators and Congress people, one of the person said, "Well, I didn't know that med spas weren't there wasn't a certification for them." And they are under the corporate practice of medicine, so the doctor should be certified, right? Like they're certified, their certification is in medical. However, there are a lot of, as like you said, things that happen in each practice that doesn't necessarily allow for the consumer who thinks they're seeing a doctor, right? Or a doctor who's on site all the time. There's a lot of misconception, I guess, is where I'm trying to get to. Because when this Congress woman, she said, I have no idea who owns the med spa that I go to. I just know Susie who does my injections. So, like you said, there's a lot of misconception in the consumer world of going into a med spa and what should they really expect? Is the doctor's name on the website? Is the doctor's name on the door? Is the doctor's name on all pamphlets and brochures? Is the doctor or someone that's been appropriately delegated doing that good faith exam? And then how is the doctor engaging with you, right? Is there any engagement points with the doctor? So I think that's the most important thing. And that was a big aha moment legislatively as things are starting to kind of warm up here in our legislative season. I believe we're going to see a little bit more around some tightening of laws in Michigan,
Mhm.
specifically around this issue. And it hasn't necessarily been put out there as a bill. We're just hearing a lot of conversation and rumbling that there needs to be tighter restrictions in the med spa industry. So whether or not people want to become part of a certification process, meaning owners of med spas, they have to be a part of something, because otherwise regulation is going to come about and they're not going to have any choice in it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the thought process of doing what is ethics, right? Ethics is doing the right thing, especially when no one's looking. So, no
Right.
one is really looking right now. So if you can start to do the right thing by being part of the MedSpa board and really looking through that credentialing process and say, well, what's going to make me kind of this A+ player in the market? So not only do I feel good about it, my med director feels good about it, the consumer can feel good about it, right? The consumer can look and know, like, this is a business I want to go to. Right now, most states do not have a registration. So I can go in and type in doctor, who's the doctor, right? And Dr. D, who is she assigned to for a med spa? Most states do not have. I think Tennessee might be the only state that has a registry, required registry. So you have to put where you're working. You can be working at a hospital, you can be working in a med spa, you can be working in 5 different places, but it all has to show up there. So with
Right.
the med spa board, it does qualify that doctor under everything that is appropriate for a medical spa. And then it also gives some transparency, because you have a directory, or we have a directory, the MedSpa board has a directory that will allow
Right.
people to see where that doctor is registered to. So that just gives the consumer a lot of power to be able to go, and reassurance, right? To know they're going to a med spa that is legitimate.
I even think a lot of consumers don't realize that all these other providers have to be working under a doctor. You can't see a
Right.
registered nurse on their own. They're not allowed to practice medicine without a doctor. And so they have a medical director somewhere. But
Mhm.
a lot of these places have what I call fake medical directors because they're not really medically directing. And
Yeah.
I'm going to read, there's been 3 of these in the last 2 days. I screenshotted them for this podcast. So here's one post on Facebook of med spa owners. It says, "Hi, everyone. Our current medical director is licensed in many states, open parentheses, 30 plus, and is looking for more clinics to supervise. He's a great friend of ours, and we would like to help him out. If anybody is in need of a new medical director, please text." And there's an actual phone number. I'm sort of tempted to investigate. But this is rampant. This is not just a one off. This is all
Yeah.
over the place. So if you go in one of these not legit places, they've got some rando in another state who's the pretend, or what I call fake medical director. And I
Mhm.
can guarantee no one like that is going to get certified by the Medspa board. And we're
Or
going to
most
actually,
importantly, I would use the word absentee. They're
yeah,
probably a real person. They're absentee. They're just not there to look at your record, right? They don't
they're
know
absentee, but
you.
they're not medically directing, which is why I think
Yes.
it's fake because they're not
I
actually
I
being a
agree.
medical director.
Both
And
work.
then a lot of these people, they don't actually know anything about aesthetics either. So they might be a doctor, but they don't actually know about our industry or our treatments or the complications that can happen. And so part of our certification process is interviewing the medical director and making sure that they actually know about what we do and are available, and they acknowledge, this is my medical practice, these people are my staff, these are my patients, and that they have malpractice insurance, and that they're prepared for emergencies. I think
Right.
if you look at most med spas out there that, are cutting these corners, they have none of those things. Okay. They don't have
Mhm.
a real medical director. They don't have malpractice. They're not using legit products. They're not ready for
Right.
emergencies. And, a lot of them are not owned legally. There's this whole part of the law, which we won't spelunk into at the moment, but corporate practice of medicine means that a business can't own a medical practice. It has to be a doctor who owns that. And so there are all these places that that's not legal either. So it's kind of complicated, and that's why it's so hard as a consumer to walk in and know what's what. So that's why we're so focused. We're very much trying to put a really obvious label on the legit awesome places so that they can say, "Hey, we're certified." And then it's up to consumers to decide. If you're a consumer and you want to go to the illegal place down the corner because it's cheaper, I don't that's okay. Like, that's you can fly to
Right.
Mexico and have it done. That's fine by
Go
me. I
for it.
can't
Yeah.
but I just feel like there needs to be a level playing field, whatever, level ground, so that people can discern and know and make an informed choice. I don't think right now there is not an ability to make an informed choice because it's just so hard to tell, because the doctor's name will be somewhere. It's like, well, they live in Illinois, not Seattle, but there's a
Right.
doctor on the, I mean, it just has to be real.
Well, I think you bring up a really great point. One of the things you said, like kind of emergency ready.
Yeah.
It's okay if you have a fake or absentee doctor, someone who's licensed in 30 states. So, okay, regardless of how good you think you are, as you know, in medicine, shit can happen and it can
Yeah.
happen fast, you know?
Stuff can
So
happen.
yeah, well, and I think that's a really important thing as a certified med spa. We are looking at safety procedures and what's in place because someone could send someone off to the ER and they have no idea what to do. And so you have to have one that
Yes.
medical director who has
Yeah.
some type of access and availability to that patient, but also has some type of protocol in place that works for your area. Because someplace in the
Exactly.
middle of Indiana is not going to have the same access or availability to someone who is, in LA, because LA probably has seen some of these procedures before. So
Right.
I think
That's
that
true.
I think that is a really important part of people. Yeah, go down the street if it's cheaper, go down the street if you're okay, and that's okay, right? It's fine. But if you have a symbol that someone can look at and say, okay, I feel good because I know there's a doctor, there's some doctor, there's not some, there is doctor oversight here happening.
Right.
On top of that, I know that the procedures have been approved, whatever way that doctor sees. And I also know at the ultimate end, if there is an emergency, I know that I'm going to be taken care of. So I think that the Med Spa board brings that just sigh of relief to a consumer. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And hopefully it's really a no-brainer for all of us as med spa owners to want to get certified and display this on our signage on our website so people know, hey, we're certified, right? Like, we're doing the right thing. I mean, I know for me as a physician, I mean, I live 5 minutes from my spa, and although we have another location an hour away, I'm not the medical director for that one. I feel like that's too far. I don't. I only. I only manage one. Now I could manage more than one if it were close enough, but I don't feel comfortable with that. I think the idea that a medical director is covering 30 states is ludicrous, and not
Mhm.
that's not medicine, okay? That
Right.
the person is just renting out his license for people to use, and that, I think that honestly that should be illegal. So I think that's technically not illegal, but in a lot of those states they do have requirements about where that medical director needs to be. Not all the states do, so that's kind of a morass, right, of
Mhm.
legal stuff.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's ethical, and so regardless of whether it's legal in your state to have a medical director living, 500 miles away,
Mhm.
we will not certify your spa if your medical director is 500 miles away. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know that we have an exact radius. Like, in certain states, things are very far apart with lots of land in between, and people drive farther, like in Texas, than they do here in the Northwest.
Mhm.
But you have to be reasonably able to get to the place so that you know your people and you work with them and you're supervising them. They are your employees.
That's the
And
language we have, I think, for the Medspa board. I actually know it's in there. That was one of and that is also the wording reasonably able. There's
yeah,
no time and there's
right.
no.
Right.
miles because it has to be reasonably able. And that's,
Right.
to your point, there's a lot of variations, but you as a doctor have to be thinking, well, what is that to me? So everyone's going to
Yeah.
have a reasonably able kind of reactive point, like, okay, I can be this far away and I feel okay with that, or I can be this far. That's, again, it's on the doctor's license. And but it's also a consumer, I think, awareness, but also sense of protection, knowing that a doctor has went through the Medspa Board certification process, and
Mhm.
that doctor is aware of, kind of their risk level,
Yeah.
and they're willing to make that happen for that patient. So,
Absolutely. And I mean, as a physician, I can tell you that like I would not risk my license for anything, right? So if I felt uncomfortable with any procedure or any personnel that I thought, ooh, I don't know, that person's not so great, I'm not backing that person up. I mean, that is not something I'm willing to do. And
mhm,
I think it's weird. I don't understand the idea of a physician who's willing to rent out his license over 30 states. Like that, I don't understand. But
mhm.
regardless of whether there are some unsavory people who do unethical things, I'm just saying we will not certify a spa that has a medical director who doesn't live anywhere near, like, and cannot reasonably get to that place. It's just
Reasonably
not gonna
able.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, give me another text or another screenshot. You said you had some more
Oh, I had 3
screenshots?
of them, yeah, so that
Yeah.
was only
Tell some
one.
more.
Okay. The next one was, "Hi, everyone. If you're located in New York and are a nurse looking to start your own side gig and need some oversight, or you own a med spa and looking for a nurse practitioner as a medical director, I'm available to help. I'm a women's health nurse practitioner with full practice authority in many states. I also run my own practice in South Jersey. Feel free to DM me." That was one. And then the third one was a repeat of different words, but the same 30 plus med spa
Okay.
guy. So yeah, I just,
Why do you feel like we're seeing an uptick on those? I mean, I know that there's been a lot of absentee. We here in Michigan, we've seen a lot of it in the east side of the state, a lot of absentee doctors, but I feel like there's becoming an uptick in this. Why do you feel like that is?
well, I think that that goes along with the explosive growth of the industry in general. I think that people do not call a lawyer. I think that they go to a weekend course, or they hear that there's money in Botox or other aesthetic procedures, and they just barrel right ahead and start doing it. And when they go to try to get Botox and they're told by Allergan, "Oh, sorry, you can't order Botox without a medical director." They're like, "Oh," and now they got to scrounge around. How do I find a medical director? And then they find one, even though they don't realize, like, well, okay, that's not really kosher, right? But so then they find one of these unsavory people and they get an Allergan account. So now they're ordering Botox, and it's not really legal. They're not allowed to, they can't even do a good faith exam. They don't even know what that means, right? But but they bought the Botox. So now they've got Botox and they've got a fake medical director and they're doing it and they're not doing good faith exams and they're unsupervised, and they own a business now that's doing aesthetics that, by the way, that's illegal also because they're not a doctor and they're not allowed to own so it snowballs because then they just Google it and ask AI, like, how do I get a laser? And a laser company will sell a laser to anybody as long as the medical director signs the paperwork. So if you find an unsavory character to be your medical director who's willing to sign off on the purchase order of a laser, now you're a nurse who's practicing medicine illegally, which is a felony.
Hmm.
Okay. And now you're buying a laser. And so one thing leads to another, and you're doing all kinds of things. And in some states nurses can't touch a laser, in other states it's totally legal, but like they have to be supervised.
Yeah, I think it becomes also the word. I mean, everything's become normalized, right? So it's like, well, one, everyone else is doing it. It's
Right.
like there was that
Yep.
analogy when we talked in Vegas. Like someone was like, well, because everyone else is going 90, I should go 92. And the speed limit
Yeah.
really is 65. So regardless of everyone else doing it, you're above the
Yeah.
speed limit, you're doing it illegally. I think that's things just really become extremely normalized in the industry. And so that's why, we need to start to set some standards. And we've talked about this kind of, again, from the Medical Spa Association, my spa, like the first year we started it, we started it because of COVID. It was like, okay, how do we make sure people are protected and we can start to get back to work? Well, and then there was very little things getting kind of brought up. Now it's almost every year there's something getting brought up in regards to med spas. So it is tracking for all, not just Michigan. I'm just using that as my example, but every state is starting to have legislative issues. And so how do you, as a business, get to know what's going on, but also kind of get ahead of it? You
Mhm.
can now have this credentialing that allows you to be above board. And
Yeah.
as these laws and restrictions start to become about, the Medspa board, is going to be getting pulled into some of those items, right? There's no other credentialing on the market at this point, and it's going to be something that is going to get pulled in nationally to a lot of these conversations. And that is why it's going to be great to be for people to be a part of it, not only from a, hey, we're doing things right, but as laws and restrictions start to come about, and more are going to come every year. They're going to come
Yeah.
fastballs in the next 3 years. There's going to be fastballs, and people
Yeah.
are not going to know how to look, like where to look and what to do. But being a part of an organization like this allows you a voice in that, and allows you to also protect what you have. And there will be people who fall off, meaning there will be businesses, like you said, that the RNPA who starts it and just doesn't understand all the rules and regulations of how to start it. They're going to choose not to be part of a med spa board, but consumers will choose not to go there, right? So
Yeah.
I think just a chicken and egg situation, but the chicken is laying the eggs when it comes to the legislatively, it's happening. And so we need to make sure we're protected, not only as an industry with the med spa board, but also our consumers are protected. That's our biggest, I mean, that's all we can do, right? Is if there's this wild west going on, how do you kind of put things in a less wild zone, right? Put a little bit of
Yeah.
a fence around the wild west. And that's, I mean, and consumers want that. I want that. You want
Yeah.
that, right? And so I think that's
Absolutely.
where, yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine navigating this as a consumer if I didn't already know all this stuff. Like, it's just
Right.
really, it's frightening. So, for anybody out there who's interested in the Med Spa board, either getting certified, or if you're interested in hearing about it from the consumer side, it's at www.medspaboard.com. And if you want to contact me directly through the website, I'm info@drkt.com. But you can reach me through the MedSpa board. If you reach out, the email's on the website, but it's contact@medspaboard.com. You can find out more about getting certified. We're just about ready, and we are going to offer like a discount for the first 100 people who sign up. So we're super duper close on that. So I'll have you back, Nicole, really soon. We can do another follow up once we're launched. How about that?
I love it. Yeah, and I love the thought of someone being a founding member, right? Like just being part of that 100 so they can really, help move the organization forward. But to be a founding
Mhm.
member is really a big thing, but also thinking about it from the standpoint of, what if you're the first in Michigan, the first in California, the first in
Mhm.
Texas? Like, what you're setting such an example for your state of what others need to be doing. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement around this. Thanks for having me, Kate.
Well, thank you so much. I assume you're going to be the first in Michigan. I just filled it
I
all out.
think
I'll
so.
probably be the first in Washington, but yeah, we can talk about that. So thanks so much for talking about this today, and we will follow up in a little bit when we are ready to launch. If you've learned something and like what we're doing, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app. If you have a question or a crazy story of your own you'd like to share, please send an email or voice recording to info@drkatedee.com. That's DRKATEDEE.com. Or reach us through the website medspamayhem.com. And read the book. MedSpa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Thanks for listening. This has been MedSpa Mayhem with Dr. Kate D. We are so grateful you're listening, and we hope you've learned at least one fun or possibly disturbing fact today. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star review. And read the book. MedSpa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Links and more can be found in the show notes and on medspamayhem.com.